All right, so it looks like we got ourselves an update for the highly anticipated AE2, which of course will be the follow-up to the very successful Adidas Anthony Edwards 1. So, of course, we did get this image about a week or I guess a month ago. This was shared by Adidas themselves. After months of different leaks hitting the net, I guess Adidas shared this via their shareholders meeting to just kind of like shut everybody up after a lot of speculation. And as far as this image, of course, it had a lot of people talking mostly negative. And I guess as far as the follow-up to the successful AE1, which Adidas didn't even know was going to be as big of a hit as it was, you got big shoes to fill, no pun intended. So as far as the AE2 goes, I always say, like, don't judge a sneaker by its first look. Wait till these are presented like in their proper presentation and everything like that. So what makes the AE1 so successful? Well, for one, the design was hitting. This was a model which people definitely gravitated towards, due to its design language, which coming off the whole Adidas Yeezy collaboration, a lot of the past Yeezy designers went ahead and transitioned right over to Adidas basketball. And in return, you have a model which did draw a lot of early comparisons to the Yeezy Quantum, which I feel like isn't necessarily a bad thing. Plus, on top of that, you had a great viral marketing campaign presenting this sneaker, which really showed off Anthony Edwards' like true personality. He had a breakthrough season, which the Timberwolves, they made it to like the conference finals. So they definitely did their thing with that one. And on top of that, the AE1 also received a whole bunch of industry accolades, including the prestigious Complex Sneaker of the Year list, very top honors, as they named the AE1 as 2024's Sneaker of the Year, which this model actually debuted in 2023, December to be specific. So as far as the AE2, it was originally reported that they were supposed to actually drop or debut last holiday season, but according to Soul Retriever, for unknown reasons, apparently Adidas has now pushed those back. So we're going to speak a little bit on like the release and how Adidas should drop them and everything like that a little bit later. Plus, let's not forget the AE1, great affordable sneaker. The high tops originally came in at $120, but then they went on to drop low tops for $110, which I feel like that's a great move. And then as far as the latest AE1 release, you have this pair, which I've nicknamed like the cotton candy joint. This is a great one. And one of the more real cool recent AE1 drops. So again, these are going to be dropping coming up here this Saturday. And speaking of AE1s, like they've dropped so many different colorways, whether it's the low tops or the high tops. So many great pairs that I feel like are really dope. So I'm a fan of like the black and red joints. I would definitely say the Ascent pack was really cool. I actually own the low tops myself. Year of the Snake joints went crazy. Gotta love the Stormtroopers, whether it's the high or the lows. But my favorite, I would say, you probably can't go wrong with the OG with Love colorway. So a lot of different great AE1 colorways, so many to choose from. Smash hits for Adidas, which definitely brought in a lot of revenue for them, moving forward. Plus, we can't forget about the viral campaign, which all features like this same theme, which has got like the orange backdrop and everything like that. As far as the early ads, I felt like they really, let Anthony Edwards' personality shine through. Of course, throughout, they've continued to add more elements to these promotions, with like iced tea and all that whole theme and everything like that. But these promos definitely have been undefeated. But going into this year, it kind of feels like Adidas has just dragged this promo campaign. And as far as the AE2, remember guys, I told y'all not to judge that sneaker based off its first look. I'm guessing that Adidas is going to have another great campaign. Hopefully they don't continue with this same theme. They got to elevate, take things to the next level. But as far as the AE2 rollout, it's going to be definitely an interesting one to pay attention to. Now, as far as Anthony Edwards himself, I feel like his success on the court definitely translates into the success of this sneaker. As I mentioned, last year was definitely a breakthrough season for him. Timberwolves made it all the way through the conference finals. Now, this year, a lot of people were saying, like, Anthony Edwards, Ant-Man, you're the new face of the league, a title which he pretty much was like, I don't want no parts in that. And in return, I feel like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, be careful what you say because it might just happen. And as far as like the face of the league conversation, it seems like this year he's not getting as many highlights or as talked about as much. I don't really know, but let me know what y'all think. As far as his stats and everything, those seem to be great. Stats are going up. Off the court, he is involved in a little like drama and everything, which I really could care less about. We're not getting into the off the court drama. But this year, it'll be interesting to see where the Timberwolves fall as far as like the playoff conversation, as far as their record. I guess they're like in the middle of the pack Their wins-loss record is not as good as it was last year, so maybe that could be the case. Also, Ant-Man's getting caught up with like a lot of techs and everything. So as far as his on-the-court play, I would say he's having a great season, but if they can have like a late playoff push, maybe finish somewhere in the conference finals, who knows? Like maybe they could really upset everybody as some underdogs and make a really deep playoff push, which I feel like, of course, you already know Adidas executives are hoping that that's the way things are going to go, because it would be a great way to roll out a new sneaker. Which, speaking of the AE2, as far as the rollout, I mentioned earlier they were supposed to actually drop like last holiday season. So I think the best ideal scenario for like say Adidas is like to roll these out during the playoffs, like, you know, surprise everybody. They're probably expecting these to drop like next NBA season. I would say roll these out during the playoffs. You really don't know, as far as Minnesota, how deep of a push they're gonna make, but I would roll these out like early first round of the playoffs, bring some energy to Ant-Man, some extra additional media attention. And let's say they do have a like late playoff push and like, let's say push to like the conference finals or something like that. It would be a huge look. You guys can then go ahead and debut some more colorways and bring some excitement for this silhouette, which based off the first little teaser look right here, a lot of people had a lot of negative things to say. I feel like it's really tough to follow up how cool the AE1s look, but I would say these joints ain't looking too bad. Again, a lot of samples have been floating around, and more so recently, this is a new sample that we're now seeing floating around right here. So let's see what we got right here. All right, so this was the first sample that we saw floating around, right? So this is the blue joints, which obviously would go with the Minnesota Timberwolves colors, the theme and everything like that. I feel like the blue ain't looking too bad, but I would say this is probably like some early samples, as you can see, just based off the design language compared to the finished product, which Adidas teased, or potentially the finished product. You can see there's some extra design elements added there. So you got that blue pair, which I feel like the colorway on this one is cool. Now, as far as this white pair, which has just recently popped up again, these are looking really nice. Like when it comes to the AE2, it's always about colorways, or any sneaker, it's always about colorways. And you can't go wrong with an all white pair. I feel like with the design, which has so many like different elements to it, different layers, I feel like an all white design or just like a tonal design really goes a long way with a design which features a lot of design elements. So white joints looking crazy. Again, seems to be an early sample, as again, it doesn't feature those additional design elements. But even more so recently, we got this additional pair which popped up. So credit to Dre the Shoe Guy. He's another creator here on the platform. He actually shared this image right here, which, as I mentioned, it features those additional elements right here. So the AE2 might be lining up to actually be pretty decent. Now, as far as this new look right here, it's kind of tough to tell if this is like a low top version or if the AE2 is just more of a low top silhouette altogether, but these are actually lining up to be pretty decent. Now, you see how these are chunky? This part right here pops out. I'm not a huge fan of that, but as far as on this most recent look, I might have to say these joints are actually looking decent. And for one, the AE2, I was such a big fan of the AE1. I would say these are lining up. I could see some of the natural design elements from the one transitioning here into the two. And I'm gonna just say it for one, y'all, I'm definitely looking to check these out. I'm optimistic about them. So we'll see how the whole marketing campaign, the rollout all comes together. It's really tough to like live up to the AE1, but as far as Anthony Edwards, as far as his legacy in the game of basketball, as far as his legacy here in the shoe game, I would say this bro is definitely off to a great start. So let me know what y'all think about these. Have you guys ever picked up any AE1 colorways in the past? And are you looking forward to the AE2? JA TV. I'll catch y'all next time. Salute. I'm out. Love.